Good day, everyone. I am January Arcatalan from BSAU 1A, and I'm here to discuss about the do's and don'ts on Philippine Election Day. First of all, what is election? Election. It is a process in which people vote to choose a person or group of people to hold an official position. This proves that the Philippines is a democratic country wherein the Filipinos have the right to vote and show their sovereignty. An election is composed of campaigns of running candidates for a position or office, which purpose is to lead the country to the betterment and solve various problems. Additionally, the election process is done by voting through a voting system. However, the voting systems are much more complicated than just voting for someone to the position. Since it scopes national scale position, thus I will be discussing the do's and don'ts on election day. Firstly, a Filipino should know the do's and don'ts before heading to your designated precinct. Now, before going to your precinct, have a list of candidates to vote for. Making a list of your preferred candidates on paper allows for a fast voting process. More importantly, this prevents any mistakes or erasures on your ballot. Remember to write it down on a paper because using your phone inside the precinct may be prohibited to prevent taking selfies and photos of official ballots. Also, make sure to eat before leaving. Since queuing up or waiting is sometimes longer than expected, and since it is summer, it is hot and may consume your energy quickly, causing you to be tired and hungry. Also, bring an umbrella and water. Then bring at least one valid ID just to make sure your identification is verified. Bring also an extra pen just in case. Although Comelec will provide a marking pen for shading the ballots, it's always better to be safe than sorry. Last but not the least, check your precinct details and verify your voter status to make sure that your status is already active and you are eligible to vote. Now, before heading to your designated precinct, there are two things you should not do. The first is bringing campaign materials, which include clothing, accessories, and face masks that bear any candidate's name. It is also advised to stay safe and avoid any colors that may be associated with the candidate. Instead, wear something neutral. This is to ensure that the election process remains peaceful and orderly. Then, as it is a public process and involves many people voting for their rights, refrain from carrying guns or any other dangerous items as doing so could result in you being falsely accused of being a terrorist. Additionally, it is quite improper to bring it in the precinct. However, if you want to ensure your safety, please do not bring it inside or show it to people as it will cause a commotion. Instead, put it in your car or have your companion hold it once you enter the precinct. Moving on to the do's and don'ts at the polling center or precinct. Since COVID-19 pandemic has not been resolved, it is necessary to follow minimum safety protocols when queuing at the precinct, which includes the proper wearing of face mask, social distancing, and frequent sanitation. Temperature checks will also be performed upon entry. This is to lessen the chances of spreading the virus and for the citizen's safety. Once you enter the precinct, always read the instructions before casting your votes, and completely shade the inside circle right next to the name of your preferred candidates. Keep your ballot free from unnecessary markings and writing. Once you have finished voting and inserted your ballot into the vote counting machine or VCM, keep your receipt confidential. Keep your receipt confidential. No one should be able to see or hold these documents except you. Then before folding and wrapping the receipt in the designated case, always double check and verify if your votes were correctly recorded. Moving on to the don'ts at the polling center. The most important to remember is to never vote selling and never vote buying, as these two will jeopardize the future of the Philippines in exchange for a few thousand pesos. Since both buying and both selling are illegal, it is not right to do these kinds of activities. However, since the government cannot cover all the precincts, it is the citizens' responsibility and morality to avoid and not indulge in these things, and to report if they have seen people doing such activities. Because vote buying or selling does not promote fair elections and may lead to corruption and violence. Moving on to the ballots, do not accept a ballot with tears, marks, or shades. Be sure to carefully inspect your ballot upon receiving it, since neglecting it will have a negative results, such as rejection of the VCM. If your ballot has unnecessary markings or tears that it is not your doing, report immediately to warrant a replacement ballot. However, if the unnecessary markings are you're doing, for instance, overvoting, according to Omnibus Selection Code, Article 18, Section 211, Number 18, quote unquote, if the candidates voted for exceed the number of those to be elected, the ballot is valid, but the vote should be counted only in favor of the candidates whose name were firstly written by the voter within the spaces provided for said office in the ballot until the authorized number is covered. Therefore, it is still valid, however, it is misleading and not acceptable for you as a citizen. Nevertheless, it is not advisable to overvote. You may choose to abstain or undervote, but do not shade more than the intended number of candidates for each position. Lastly is don't use gadgets in the precinct, since it is prohibited to take photos inside the precinct, particularly the ballot or the receipt. Next, I will discuss also the election process in the Philippines, specifically the voting registration and procedures. Now, let's dig deeper into the voter registration in step-by-step process. Step 1. Upon registration, we want to know if you are qualified to vote and what are the requirements or documents required to register and be verified to vote. According to COMELEC, any Filipino citizen who is not yet a registered voter may apply for registration, provided he or she possesses the following qualifications for national and local elections. For example, the recent national elections or May 9, 2022. A person should be at least 18 years of age on or before May 9, 2022 national and local elections. Second, the citizen should be a resident of the Philippines for at least 1 year and in the place wherein he or she proposes to vote for at least 6 months immediately preceding the May 9, 2022 national and local elections. And third is a citizen that is not otherwise disqualified by law. What are the disqualifications to register? First is any person who has been sentenced by final judgment to suffer imprisonment for not less than 1 year, such disability not having been removed by plenary pardon or amnesty. Second is any person who has been adjudged by final judgment by a competent court or tribunal of having committed any crime involving disloyalty to the duly constituted government, such as rebellion, insurrection, violation of the firearms law, or any crime against national security, unless restored to his or her full civil and political rights in accordance with law. And last or third, insane or incompetent person as declared by competent authority unless subsequently declared by proper authority that such person is no longer insane or incompetent. Proceeding to the documentary requirements, a person has to be established his or her identity upon filling his or her application. The following are valid identification documents. First is the Philippine Identification Card, the Employee's Identification Card with signature of the employer or authorized representative, and third is Postal ID, fourth is the PWD Discount ID, fifth is a Student's ID or Library Card signed by the school authority, then the Senior Citizen's ID, Driver's License, NBA Clearance, Passport, SSS or GSIS ID, Integrated Bar of the Philippines or IBP ID, license issued by the Professional Regulatory Commission or PRC, certificate of confirmation issued by the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples or NCIP in case of members of ICCs or IPs, and any other valid ID. Step 2. Know the schedule. Always check the COMELEC website for an announcement of the registration schedule, as COMELEC is strict towards the schedule. Step 3. Also know the local COMELEC office of your place for the convenience of your time when it is time to register. Step 4. According to COMELEC, all applications for registration and other voter-related applications are not automatically approved. These applications have to be approved or disapproved by the Election Registration Board or ERB in every applicable district, city, and municipality. Thus, wait for the approval of ERB before proceeding to the next step, which is step 5, the registration procedures. Pursuant to Section 12 of Resolution number 9853, first step is a qualified applicant need only to appear personally at the local COMELEC office. And then step 5.1, the applicant's identity and residence will be verified. Remember, bring a valid ID with photograph and signature. Step 5.2, the applicant status of registration will also be verified. This may be done using a computer application at the local COMELEC office. Step 5.3, after a successful verification of applicant's ID, he or she shall be given 3 copies of the application forms to fill up. A blank application form is also available for download from the COMELEC website. This form may be downloaded and printed. It may be accomplished before proceeding to the local COMELEC office to save on time. However, it should only be signed and thumb marked at the local COMELEC office. In step 6, the applicant's biometrics will then be digitally captured using the voter registration machine or VRM by an authorized VRM operator. Then, an acknowledged receipt will be given to the applicant. Afterward, the voter ID card is a valid ID that is recognized by all government offices and banks for a person's identification purposes. It is, however, not a requirement for a person to vote. And lastly is wait for further announcement and instructions regarding to the voting process. Moving on to the voting procedures, also it is a step-by-step procedure. Step 1. Have your temperature checked before entering the voting center to implement minimum safety protocols since the COVID-19 has not been resolved. Step 2. Proceed to the voter's assistant desk to secure your precinct and sequence numbers and assigned room or clustered precinct. Step 3. Go to your assigned room and introduce yourself to the election board by stating your name, precinct, and sequence numbers. Step 4. Get your ballot secrecy folder, and marking pen, and fill out the ballot at the voting area. As I have said earlier, always check your ballot for unnecessary markings. Step 5. Accomplish the ballot by fully shading the oval appearing before the name of the candidate you wish to vote for. Remember, do not overvote. Step 6. Feed the ballot into the vote counting machine or VCM. Step 7. Check your voter's receipt and then deposit it in the receptacle. Keep it to yourself and verify it. Step 8. Have your right for fingernails stained with indelible ink. And that ends our discussion about the do's and don'ts on election day and the voting registration and procedure in the Philippine election process. And here is my references. And always remember that it is your right and responsibility to vote. Thus, use your vote wisely. Thank you.